are on this side. Some really useful things are on this side. We're going to go over most of it, but you usually end up with this empty blank screen. And for the sake of a poster, we're going to open a new file. And usually there's a bunch of different sizes right here. If you are making a poster for our school and you're going to be printing it at Carl at the print shop, he usually prints between letter, which is 8.5 by 11 to 12 by 18. I think it's a great size to go with is 11 by 16. 11 by 17, my bad. And the only reason I'm stressing on this is so often you make things that are like too small and then you warp them into really big things and they're just the wrong resolution and you just don't want to do that. So it's a really good idea to know where you're going to be printing on. So you can start off things on the right canvas size and just the general right size. All right, so you start off with this. And we said we're just making up an event right now as we go, so you guys should give suggestions on what you think should be on this poster. I think when you can print on campus, it's really nice to be able to print on the whole background. So you don't really need, you can start off with a white background as opposed to a transparent one, which would be printing black font onto white paper like we normally do. We usually print on transparent background. If you had red paper, you'd be printing onto black onto red. But we can always change the back. So yeah, let's start with the back file. How about this as the background? Right? So what it immediately did, whenever you open a new file, is that it opens not as a layer, but as a separate window. All right? Now, what did I just brought up this whole thing about layers. The coolest thing about Photoshop is you can deal with each thing on your poster separately. So if you have a text, you can manipulate that separately. You can manipulate the picture separately. This is about to make sense. So I can take this, select all, right? Just normally how you copy paste in your computers, Control C or copy, and paste that, Control V, onto this new poster. That makes sense. Now you will see that that's been added as a layer, which means you can actually move this around and change just this separately without actually affecting the whole thing in the back, which is really useful as you add more things onto this. Now, the good thing about this photo, because I knew to put it in, was that it was already super big, and that's coming back to making sure everything's big or the correct size so you don't mess it up and have a really blurry thing on a really big poster. Now, I said I'm going to be using this as a background, so we can free transform it to change any photo according to how you need to fit it onto your poster. And if you guys want and leave your email addresses, I can actually send you the shortcuts for each of these things because I'm kind of zooming through it. You press Control F, Control T, and look. So it really depends on what layer you're selected on. I was on layer 0, which is why now my entire poster is being manipulated. We don't want that. We want to be only changing layer 1, which is this photo right here. So if I Control T that, now that one's selected. Another thing, when you stretch things out, that looks gross. So if you keep your hands on Shift Alt, which is, I think, Option Shift on the Mac, you can make sure it doesn't warp up and you're only doing it according to what the proportions already are. So I think that's an alright size, right? So we have the start of a background right here. And then what do you usually add to a poster? Some text, which is really helpful. The text on Photoshop is a little difficult to work with, unlike every other thing where you can really easily put text in. So here, always make sure your color is the right one, and just put in text as you normally would, like Happy Chinese New Year. And you really can't see that right now. So up here, you can always change the font size, as you would in Microsoft Word. And now I'm back to a selection tool. So whenever I'm switching in between tools, it's really a good idea to come back to your top selection tool. And you can move this around and change this particular layer without really touching this one. Whoop, I totally got that wrong. Okay, so I got this font wrong. The only way to change the font is to go back to the text tool and come back to that. You can't just select it. And it's always really, really annoying because it tries to make a different layer or a different text. So be a little careful with this. I don't know why they make this so hard. And you can alter that again. Cool thing is you can change the style if you want it to go up and down, if you want it to be 3D. So now it's going up and down. The bold factor is right here. Monday at 3:30. Just to make it a bit more realistic. Now this is still looking like something you could have probably done in Microsoft Word. So let's add something into it. Lanterns, right? Chinese lanterns is a great idea. I'm thinking. Well, wow. Do you guys want to pick a photo? Maybe this one? Or this one? This one? This one? This one. I like this one. Alright. Okay, so why did I like that one? It was kind of arbitrary, but also I was looking at right here where it tells you how large that image is. And like I said, always large is better, especially when you're dealing with something you're going to print a lot and larger things. So here I saw that it was already the size of much larger than the image we're dealing with right now, so that's fine. Because you can always shrink things. Expanding is when it gets weird. Alright, so let's take this image and just copy it. You could have saved it, but we're just trying to go through this quickly and as easily as possible. So I did Control-C on the image, Control-V onto this now. Alright, now notice how we can't see, this is kind of covering everything. That's because this layer is on top, and whenever that's the case, everything behind it will be hidden. So you can just move, hold this down, hold the layer down, up and down, and move it according to how you want your things to show up. Now, one of the most used tools for me during poster making is to select things out of random images that you find in Google and put them onto your poster. So, first you have to make sure your layer is selected, or else you'd be selecting random things from other places. And then go to the selection tool right here. There's magic tool, there's this quick one, there's the square one. I'm gonna go with the quick one because it's actually it recognizes shapes and colors in a really smart way. I think the brush size is alright, and you're about to see why that's important. And you can just go over the shape like that. And yeah, that's a little hard. Alright, so I didn't like that, right? You can go to the minus sign right there and get that out of your selection. Whenever you have these magic ants, you know you're doing the right thing. And so often I'm just it's not, why don't you get it? Why don't you get that that's red and that's black? It's just because you're on the wrong layer probably, or well, I am on the wrong layer. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with this selection right here. So, okay, so no, I'm not. So now you need to zoom in. Control plus, Command plus your Apple, or you can find the zoom button in the view screen, Control plus plus. Anyway, so I'm zooming in, trying to make my life easier. Whoa, too much. And then instead of always pressing the minus sign, you can just press Alt and it becomes minus. These are all just little shortcuts that you really get used to, and I will give you in a list later. So I'm pretty happy with this, let's say.
What do you use to draw so carefully around? Is that your...
It wasn't me. They just do it because they can recognize that that's the object you're trying to pick. So I can deselect. Let me start over really quickly. And the moment I had this tool, it figured out that I was trying to go into that red space, although I didn't really pick it out like that. So it's better to use high contrasting images because then it can figure it out much easier, and you don't have to zoom in and go, no, pick this, not this. So yeah, that was just Photoshop, which is why you could do it so quickly. And then now I want a little bit of that yellow, except I'm on subtract. Okay, so we have this object just really quickly. And now if you right click, layer via copy, layer via cut, we're just trying to extract this lantern out of this photo and put it into the next thing. So I'm fine with layer via cut. Look, right there, a new layer is formed, and right there, there's this ugly layer 2, which doesn't let you see this. These eyes next to it easily show you if you want to see it or not. So I can unselect that, go back to my moving tool. Oh, yep, we're...
Color in the background.
All right, that's actually fantastic. So we could, do you want a solid color or do you want to put in another photo behind it?
Something tricky that you know how to do.
Well, or we could, sometimes you just have to put in a black background. There's many ways to do this, but one of the really useful tools to know about layers is when you double click them, they bring up this layer style thing, which means you can just really mess with it for hours, where you can put in a gradient in the background, which is like a pretty white to pink, or you can just put in a color overlay, which is what we're doing because we're trying to get, what are we trying to do? We're trying to cover up the white with one color. So I'm picking black as a color overlay, and here I'm just affecting the properties of this background layer. And by putting a color overlay, that was a double click on, you okay it, and then suddenly you've just changed the background. Now, our font size is obviously not working anymore. Two things. You can either go back to text and go through that annoying process that I went through with this and white, or you can change this text into a layer, because it's just always easy to work with layers by going rasterize. I know I did that really fast, but it'll be in step by step. And then just treat it like a layer. We already know how to put colors on top of layers. So then you can double click it, color overlay, and turn it into any color you want. And that's easier than trying to change the text every time. Just turn it into a layer. So now, that was like, I know we kind of zoomed through it, but just knowing how to move these around, have the flexibility of it. Sometimes you're like, I don't really know if that's in the center. So you can change the view, bring in rulers, literally be like, all right, 1 centimeter works here, 1 centimeter works here. These won't show up in your things at all. And just try to align things and make sure your composition works. When you're happy with how things are, you can left click on any layer, any of them, and either do merge visible. So I remember how I got rid of this thing over there. It actually looks really nice. But I had to show you how to cut things out. And you can just do merge visible, which makes all of it into one layer right here. Or just flatten it, which also gets rid of the other things. And flatten just made it into a static photo. Now, what if you were like, oh, I really shouldn't have done that? Right here, you have a history button, or in the Windows, you can pick out your history button. And the great thing about that is it's like Control Z, except a bajillion times. You can go back and through each of your processes and change it at any point. So I think I was happy with not merging it, or just merging the visible and not flattening it. So that's just a really quick way on how to put together a poster and like the different things you can change in each posters. And just when you're saving it, save it as the correct kind of file, preferably JPEG, or PDF is a little hard. And you can always keep the original Photoshop document, but when you're emailing it out for it to be printed, you save it as a JPEG. All right.